Have you ever wondered why people would give up human life to their gods? Beneath the surface of our civilized world lies a dark history, one stained by innocent lives being offered to appease the gods. 1. The dark rituals of Neolithic Europe. The plains of Europe, now a center of civilization, once harbored a dark secret. Archaeological excavations at sites like Saint-Paul-Trois-Châteaux in France and Brno-Bohunice in the Czech Republic have unearthed a chilling truth about our Neolithic ancestors, the ritualistic unaliving of young women. Dating back to as early as 5400 BC, these findings expose a culture consumed by a terrifying belief system where human life was offered as a currency for agricultural abundance. A macabre method of unaliving, known as incapretamento, lies at the heart of these horrifying rituals. Victims were bound and sacrificed in a horrible technique, discovered at multiple Neolithic sites, reveals a disturbingly widespread practice. These young women were not merely victims, they were elevated to a sacred status, their lives believed essential for ensuring bountiful harvests, but their fate was far from merciful. 2. The cult of the human sacrifice. Beyond the brutality, these sacrifices reveal a complex interplay between religion, agriculture, and gender. For instance, some burial sites, like the one at Saint-Paul-Trois-Châteaux, aligned with the solstice, suggesting that ancient people had a sophisticated grasp of astronomy and a deep spiritual link to the natural world. This elevation of young women to a sacrificial status implies a belief system that intertwined human life with the cycles of nature. Their suffering was not seen as a tragedy, but as a necessary offering to ensure the fertility of the land and the prosperity of the communities. 3. Sacrificed in Valhalla. In the 10th century, Norse paganism held sway among the Germanic tribes, where disturbing rituals involved sacrificing enslaved women to accompany deceased warriors to Valhalla. According to Ahmed Ibn Fadlan, a slave girl would volunteer to be buried with a deceased Varangian chieftain. This volunteering process involved 10 days of brutal rituals, where she was given an intoxicating drink, violated by various chiefs, and ultimately met a tragic end by a priestess. 4. The Tomb of Masanapada. From 1922 to 1934, Sir Charles Leonard Woolley's excavation of PG 1237 at Ur opened a dramatic window into ancient Mesopotamian burial practices. The site, containing 74 human remains, offers a glimpse into the intricate rituals of that time. Women's remains were found neatly arranged in the northwest corner, some under canopies and near musical instruments, suggesting their significant roles in a well-planned ceremony. Woolley speculated that these individuals were sacrificed to accompany a high-status person into the afterlife. The elaborate headdress on body 61, similar to Queen Pwabi's, suggests she was a significant figure in the ritual. Guards' remains found around the burial area indicate the ceremony's importance and the need for strict oversight. These guards likely played a role in maintaining order during the event, highlighting the controlled and elaborate nature of the ritual. New findings have changed our understanding of these rituals. While Woolley thought the sacrifices were voluntary, modern research showing pre-mortem fractures indicates they might have been sedated or physically harmed. 5. The Morning Star Ceremony. The Pawnee people, once thriving on the Great Plains, held a complex and deeply spiritual worldview. At the heart of their culture lay a harrowing ritual, the Morning Star Ceremony. This solemn practice, specific to the Skeety Band, involved the sacrifice of a young girl as an offering to ensure the tribe's prosperity and cosmic balance. Rooted in their creation myth, which linked humanity's origins to the celestial bodies, the sacrifice was seen as essential for maintaining world order. This ritual persisted through the early 19th century, with a particularly shocking incident in 1818 bringing it to wider attention. A captive Comanche woman suffered a horrific fate when her newborn was sacrificed during the ceremony. This event, coupled with growing internal and external pressures, ignited a movement of change. A Pawnee man named Petalesharo emerged as a leading voice against the practice, and with his influence, combined with the broader shifts in society, the tradition eventually ended. 6. The Tzompantli and its human cargo.
Uncovered well over 600 skulls, and have been working for the past 6 years to uncover the whole structure and to learn more about its construction.
This is the external facade of the skull tower on the east side. The skulls were mounted on a fence-like structure and set in place with mortar.
The tower, 16 foot in diameter, is believed to be part of a skull rack from a major temple.
Aztec religious practices assigned specific roles to women, often linking them to life-giving forces such as fertility, water, and the moon. This perceived connection to the natural world made them valuable, yet tragic, participants in sacrificial rituals. The tzompantli, or skull rack, is a gruesome reminder of this practice. These structures, adorned with the skulls of sacrificial victims, including a significant number of women, challenged the romanticized view of Aztec religion. The presence of skulls among these displays emphasizes the reality of their fate. 7. Carthage, a city built on sadness. Carthage, a once powerful Phoenician city-state, now a historical site in Tunisia, is infamous for its practice of child sacrifice.
Very dramatic rite taking place in the dark, involving the cutting of the throat and bloodletting, accompanied by musicians.
The Phoenicians had a sacrificer, someone who was especially adept with the knife and could slit the throats very effectively.
These rituals, centered around sacred sites known as tophets, involved the offering of young lives to appease the gods, particularly Baal, Hammon, and Tanit. While both boys and girls were victims, archaeological evidence suggests a trend in the number of young females being sacrificed. The tophets were open-air sanctuaries where these offerings took place. Excavations have revealed urns containing the remains of infants and young animals, indicating that these practices were deeply rooted in the community's religious life. These urns were often buried in the tophet, and some sites were marked with stone inscriptions dedicated to the gods. 8. The Capacocha ritual. Inca ceremonies known as Capacocha involved the selection of young women, chosen for their beauty and purity, to honor the gods and ensure prosperity for their communities. These rituals were conducted in high mountain regions, symbolizing a closer connection to the divine. The chosen women, often children or adolescents, underwent extensive preparatory rites that included purification processes, which sometimes carried symbolic connotations. Before the final offering, these young women were adorned in elaborate, finely crafted garments made of the best materials, emphasizing their esteemed role in the ceremony. They were also given special substances, likely a combination of maize beer and coca leaves, to sedate them. The final act of the Capacocha ritual was both a spiritual offering and a profound demonstration of the community's devotion. These girls were typically interred in ceremonial sites, sometimes after being prepared in specific ways or left in the natural mountain environment. While this method of sacrifice might seem unsettling to us today, it was considered an honorable act at the time. People believed that those chosen for this fate gained a revered status and would advocate with the gods to benefit their community. 9. The Ice Maiden. In 1995, the discovery of Juanita, known as the Ice Maiden, on Mount Ampato in Peru, offered a profound glimpse into the Incas' ceremonial practices. Juanita, a young Inca girl who lived around 1450 to 1480 AD, was found in an exceptionally well-preserved state due to the extreme cold of the mountain. Her mummified body provides a direct connection to the ancient Capacocha ritual. Her burial site included intricately woven garments, such as those made from high-quality alpaca wool, which emphasized her important role in the ritual. Alongside her, ceremonial vessels and miniature artifacts were discovered, reflecting the elaborate nature of the ritual. These items corroborated the historical accounts that Capacocha participants were adorned in fine garments and surrounded by ceremonial objects. Analysis of Juanita's remains revealed that she had been provided with maize and coca leaves before her sacrifice. This finding aligns with accounts of the Capacocha ritual, where such substances were used to prepare participants. Additionally, her body's high-altitude acclimatization suggests she had undergone specific preparations to endure the harsh mountain environment. 10. The Virgins of the Sun. The Virgins of the Sun and the Capacocha ritual both involve the selection of individuals for sacred purposes, but they differ significantly in their practices. While Capacocha was a ritualistic sacrifice aimed at appeasing deities, the Virgins of the Sun were chosen primarily for their roles in religious service. Inca society held the Virgins of the Sun in high regard. These young girls, selected for their beauty and purity, were brought to Cusco each year to serve the sun god, Inti. They lived in seclusion within special temples called wasi buildings, where they engaged in crucial religious tasks, such as making offerings and tending sacred fires. Recent discoveries shed light on one Virgin of the Sun through her tomb, which held a rare feathered headdress symbolizing her high status. Feathers were highly prized in Inca culture, marking her elevated position. Unlike her peers, who stayed in Cusco or became concubines, she faced a different fate. She took on a grueling one, 0.000-mile journey to a remote mountain where she was destined for sacrifice. 11. The Hidden Secrets of the Moche Rituals. The Moche civilization of ancient Peru is renowned for its intricate and elaborate ceremonies, vividly depicted in their distinctive pottery. Among these rituals, the moche practiced human offerings, often involving young women. These offerings were believed to be crucial for ensuring fertility and agricultural prosperity, with the women undergoing ceremonial acts imbued with deep symbolic meaning. One particularly intriguing archaeological find has shed new light on these ancient practices. At the Moche Temple of Chao Viejo in the El Brujo complex, the remains of a young woman were discovered beneath the floor of a ceremonial courtyard. Her body was arranged in an unusual prone position, with her head oriented to the west and one arm extended, a posture not commonly seen in other mochi burials. This supports the idea that she was likely dropped into the burial pit. John Verano, an American archaeologist working with a Peruvian team led by Regulo Franco, speculates that she may have met her end by ingesting a toxic substance or being subdued with a cord. This method was often employed for young women chosen to accompany mochi dignitaries into the afterlife. 12. Widow's Fire, the Dark Truth of Sati. A sinister ritual targeted widows in India. Sati, cloaked in the guise of devotion, this barbaric practice demanded a wife's immolation on her husband's funeral pyre. This practice, rooted in ancient religious and cultural beliefs, was seen as an act of loyalty and self-sacrifice. The belief was that a woman who performed sati would ensure her husband's place in the afterlife and secure her own spiritual merit. The practice was officially banned in 1829 by the British colonial government after persistent campaigning by Indian reformers like Raja Ram Mohan Roy, who highlighted the inhumanity and injustice of sati. Despite the ban, isolated incidents continued to occur, revealing the deep-rooted cultural and societal pressures that sustained this practice. 13. The Virtuous Woman, Coerced Sacrifice in Korea. The concept of a virtuous woman has a long history in East Asia, deeply rooted in Confucian ideals of loyalty and chastity. In Korea, this ideal was elevated to extreme and tragic heights. The notion that a woman's worth was inextricably linked to her husband, even in passing, created a suffocating societal pressure. Initially conceived as a reward for exemplary widowhood, the title of Yeolnyo soon transformed into a deadly trap. As the Joseon dynasty progressed, the pressure to attain this honor intensified. Families, eager to enhance their social standing, encouraged or coerced widows into suicide. 14. Honor-based crimes in South Asia. In South Asia, honor-based crimes are tragically framed as sacrifices to maintain family honor and dignity. These acts, often targeting women, arise from societal beliefs that a woman's behavior reflects on her family's reputation. When a woman is perceived to have violated social norms, she may become the focus of such extreme measures.
Newlyweds Saba and Kesar are trying to put the past behind them, but her scars make it hard to forget. Just a few weeks ago, she quietly married the love of her life against the wishes of her family. The day after the marriage, Saba's father and uncle took her from her new home and tried to kill her.
These actions are justified as a way to restore or protect family honor, turning a grave situation into a distorted ritual. The individuals involved, often family members, believe that removing the source of perceived shame will rectify the family's standing in the community. 15. The tradition of Hitobashira. Across different cultures and times, the practice has extended beyond gender-based violence to include a variety of ritualistic sacrifices. Originating in Japan, Hitobashira involved the live burial of individuals beneath large-scale constructions like dams, bridges, and castles. This ritual was practiced to appease the gods and safeguard buildings from natural disasters and enemy attacks. This practice of human sacrifice as a foundational element in construction was not unique to Japan. Cultures across Asia, including China, Burma, and Indonesia, once shared this grim custom. Believing in the appeasement of spirits and the preservation of feng shui, these societies often interred humans, both adult and child, within building structures. Archaeological evidence, such as the infant remains found in Zhengzhou, China, corroborates these practices. 16. The Roman Funeral Games. Roman funeral games, or ludi funebres, were infamous for their shocking displays of violence and human sacrifice. These grand events were held to honor the dead, reflecting both the high social status of the deceased and a belief that human blood could appease their souls. Central to these games was the sacrifice of prisoners of war, slaves, or criminals, often specifically chosen for the occasion. The victims were forced into brutal spectacles, such as gladiatorial combat and public executions. Their passing was intended to provide a dramatic farewell to the deceased and entertain the audience. In addition to human sacrifices, the games also featured ritualistic animal sacrifices. Livestock, such as bulls, goats, and pigs, were offered during the ceremonies. Priests performed these sacrifices with great care, often accompanied by prayers and chants intended to invoke the favor of the gods. 17. The role of human sacrifice in ancient Egyptian royalty. In ancient Egypt, especially during the early dynastic period and Old Kingdom, human sacrifice played a significant role in royal funerary rites. This practice was deeply intertwined with the Egyptians' beliefs about the afterlife and their need to ensure that deceased royals and high-ranking officials were equipped with everything they needed in their journey to the next world. The core belief behind these sacrifices was that the deceased needed servants and companions to accompany them into the afterlife. Sacrificed individuals, usually attendants or slaves, were thought to be crucial for maintaining the deceased's status and comfort in the afterlife. This was rooted in the idea that the afterlife mirrored the earthly realm in many ways, requiring similar provisions and services. By offering up these individuals, the Egyptians hoped to ensure a seamless transition and continued support for the deceased. Those chosen for sacrifice were typically in service to the deceased, such as personal attendants or high-status slaves. The sacrifices were often conducted with elaborate rituals to show respect and adhere to religious traditions, honoring both the deceased and the gods, emphasizing the gravity of the transition from life to the afterlife. 18. The evolution of Egyptian rituals.
Death was a mystery for the ancient Egyptians as well. They weren't quite sure what the afterlife held for them. They were very suspicious they may have to do agricultural labour, working in the fields, which is something your elite Egyptian wouldn't want to do, i.e. get their hands dirty. So they made these magical statuettes that would come to life in the tomb and do this work for them, work in the fields.
As Egyptian religious beliefs evolved, the practice of human sacrifice gradually diminished. The transition to symbolic offerings marked a significant shift in burial customs. The introduction of shabti figurines, small statues placed in tombs to perform labor on behalf of the deceased, represented this shift. These figurines, often depicted as servants or workers, were believed to come to life in the afterlife to assist the deceased with agricultural tasks and other duties. This symbolic form of sacrifice replaced the earlier practice of human offerings, reflecting a broader evolution towards rituals designed to ensure comfort and service for the deceased in a more symbolic manner. 19. The role of animal offerings in Nigerian traditions. Throughout history, securing divine favor wasn't always a matter of human sacrifice. In many cultures, animal sacrifices were equally effective. In West Africa, particularly in Nigeria, animal sacrifices play a crucial role in religious and spiritual practices.
Oludumare send the Iromale. The Iromale is the gods, is the goddess, the divinities that Oludumare sent to this world. Also is among them. So it's among of the 16 that Oludumare sent. Like Oromela, Shago, Obatala, Ogun, like that, Oshun also. To come to this world, to come and help the people, the problem that any people have, to come and do that for them.
Traditional Nigerian societies, such as the Yoruba, Igbo, and Hausa Fulani, use animals like chickens, goats, and rams to communicate with deities and spirits, seek protection, or ensure community well-being. Among the Yoruba, sacrifices to orishas, deities representing various natural and spiritual forces, are performed with these animals, reflecting their integral role in rituals. The Igbo people also use animal offerings to honor ancestral spirits and mark significant life events. Goats, for instance, are a common sacrifice during major ceremonies and festivals. 20. The origin of sacrifice in Islam, the story of Abraham. In ancient times, a man named Abraham, known as Ibrahim in Islamic tradition, faced a profound test of faith. God spoke to him, asking him to sacrifice his cherished son, a command that struck deep into Abraham's heart. He loved his son dearly, but his devotion to God was unwavering. Abraham wrestled with the emotional turmoil of this command, reflecting on his long journey of faith and the promise of a great lineage. His willingness to follow God's command despite his personal sacrifice illustrated a deep and sincere trust in divine will. As Abraham and his son climbed the mountain, the weight of the command grew heavier. Just as he was about to act, an angel appeared, revealing that the sacrifice was not to be his son, but a ram. In that moment, Abraham's faith was rewarded with a divine substitute. The ram was sacrificed in place of his son, demonstrating God's mercy and Abraham's unwavering trust. Today, the story of Abraham's test is commemorated by millions around the world through a significant celebration in Islam known as Eid al-Adha. 21. Sacrifices at the altar. In ancient Greece, animal sacrifice was a key aspect of religious worship, often performed at open-air altars rather than inside temples. The ritual began with choosing a flawless animal, like a bull, sheep, or goat, which was then adorned with garlands and led to the altar by a young girl carrying a concealed knife. The ceremony included hymns and prayers, with the animal being offered at the altar. Its blood was collected and poured over the altar, while the women present expressed their respect with high-pitched tones. Following the offering, the animal was prepared on site. Certain parts, like the internal organs and bones, were offered as gifts to the deity, while the remaining meat was cooked for the participants. The temple often retained the skin, which was later sold to tanners. The Greeks chose specific animals for their symbolic significance and purity. They also practiced divination by examining the animal's liver, believing this could unveil the god's will and provide guidance on crucial decisions. 22. The Norse blot. In Norse paganism, the blot was a ritual involving animal sacrifice to honor the gods. These ceremonies were conducted outdoors at sacred sites such as groves or stone altars. During a blot, animals such as pigs, cattle, or horses were presented as offerings. The ritual was led by a priest or chieftain who conducted specific rites and chants. The animals were sacrificed, and their blood was collected in a vessel. This blood was then used to bless the ritual space and the offerings. 23. The satiation sacrifice. In the ancient Mayan world, a particularly dramatic form of animal sacrifice involved the satiation sacrifice. This ritual was performed during significant ceremonies, such as the dedication of new temples or the appeasement of gods during periods of crisis. Priests would capture large numbers of animals, including jaguars, birds, and deer. These animals were then ceremoniously sacrificed in a ritual designed to satisfy the gods' hunger and ensure their favor. The sacrifice was conducted with intense reverence, involving complex rituals where the animal's blood was often used to mark sacred spaces or was poured onto altars. The spectacle was not only a demonstration of devotion, but also a powerful symbol of the community's collective effort to sustain divine favor and secure their well-being. What do these ancient customs reveal about our own nature today?